Debt didn't ruin your life. Not directly. Debt is not evil. Debt is not immoral. Debt is not bad. Debt is a weapon. And the uncomfortable truth is, the rich use debt to become richer, while you were trained to use debt to become poorer. You were taught debt is dangerous, debt is irresponsible, debt is failure. But look around you. Why do rich people borrow billions? Why do companies borrow money on purpose? Why do banks offer loans to people who already have money? Because the system doesn't reward people who avoid debt. It rewards people who understand what debt actually is. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, this is the missing piece. You're not broke because you don't earn enough. You're broke because you were never taught how money multiplies through leverage. Because debt isn't the trap. The trap is using debt without awareness. Chapter 1. The Big Lie. Debt is bad. Let's start here. Most people grew up with a single money rule. Debt is bad. And in your life, that rule probably made sense. Because the only debt you ever saw was credit card debt, car loans, personal loans, buy now pay later, and lifestyle loan. Debt used for comfort, debt used for image, debt used to look rich. That debt is dangerous, but the real lie is thinking all debt is the same. Because the rich don't avoid debt, they avoid bad debts. They use debt like fuel. And the difference is not money, it's intention. Chapter 2. The two types of debt. Debt can do two things. 1. Debt can consume. This is debt that takes money from your future to fund pleasure in the present. For examples, borrowing to travel, borrowing to upgrade your lifestyle, borrowing to buy luxuries, borrowing to impress people, borrowing because I deserve this. This debt doesn't create income, so it creates stress. 2. Debt can produce. This is debt used to acquire something that generates income or increases capability to generate income. For examples, mortgage for a rental property, business loan to scale cash flow, borrowing to buy equipment that increase income, and borrowing to acquire an undervalued asset. This debt is not about consumption, it's about conversion. You borrow money at X%, then convert it into an asset generating more than X%. That spread is the entire game. And this is what they hid from you. Chapter 3. Why the rich borrow more as they get richer. This part will shock people. When you get richer, you don't borrow less, you borrow more. Because debt does something powerful for the wealthy. Debt lets you scale without selling your time. If you rely on salary only, you scale by working harder. But rich people don't scale through effort. They scale through systems plus leverage. Let's make it concrete. If you have $10,000 savings, you can buy $10,000 worth of assets. But if you have $10,000 and the bank trusts you, you can control $200,000 worth of assets. Not because you're smarter, but because you're more bankable. And as your assets generate income, the bank trusts you even more. That's the loop. Chapter 4. The Level 3 Loop. Let's walk through a normal citizen example. Not billionaire nonsense, not startup unicorn stories. Just a working adult. Here's person A with level 1 mindset. What does he do? Salary comes in, bills go out. Some savings, maybe invest leftovers. And avoid all loans because it's safe. This person is responsible, but trapped. Now here's person B with level 3 mindset. Same salary, same starting point. But they treat salary as a financial passport. Step 1. Build trust. They get a credit card, not to spend, to build credit history. They pay in full, never miss, never max out. This trains the system to trust them. Step 2. Access financing. After 12 to 24 months, they qualify for better credit. Personal loan, mortgage, business loan. But here's the key. They don't borrow to look rich. They borrow to buy assets. Step 3. Buy income producing asset. For example, a small property for rental or a cash flow business or equipment to generate side income. Even if the rental doesn't fully cover the loan, as long as it covers most of it, they're building an asset using other people's money. Step 4. The cash flow changes them. Now they have salary cash flow plus asset cash flow. And here's the hidden part. Banks don't just lend based on income. They lend based on repayment capacity and credibility. Rental income counts, business income counts, declared dividend counts. Now they can borrow more. So the loop continues. Salary to credit, credit to asset, asset to cash flow to credibility, and credibility to more credit. This is level 3. And once you see it, you realize most people stay broke not because they don't work hard, but because they never enter the loop. Chapter 5. Why you use debt to stay broke. Now let's talk about the painful part. Why do normal people get crushed by debt? Because most people borrow money to buy things that do not pay them back. They turn debt into lifestyle upgrades, emotional comfort, validation, and short-term relief. They borrow because it feels like, I finally can breathe. But the system doesn't care about your emotions. So you end up with minimum payments, interest compounding against you, and salary permanently locked. That's why paycheck to paycheck never ends. Debt isn't killing you, but bad debt is eating your future. Chapter 6. The Double-Edged Sword. Why Debt Destroys Most People. Here's the truth nobody likes to admit. Leverage amplifies who you already are. If you have discipline, leverage accelerates progress. If you lack discipline, leverage accelerates collapse. Debt doesn't create character. Debt reveals it. That's why some people touch leverage and build wealth, and others touch leverage and become trapped forever, because they never grew internally, which brings us to Money Mirror. Chapter 7. The Money Mirror. Why Level 3 is psychological. Most people think Level 3 is financial. It's not. It's psychological. To use debt like the rich, you need 1. Emotional maturity. Can you borrow money and not spend it emotionally? 2. Patience under uncertainty. Can you wait while the asset grows and stabilizes? 3. Responsibility without excuses. If it fails, you own it. 4. Risk management. Not avoiding risk, but managing it. 5. Identity shift. You stop being an employee who seeks comfort. You become an operator who builds systems. Most people can't do this, not because they're stupid, but because they're untrained. Chapter 8. How to use debt without destroying your life. Let's make it practical. Debt is dangerous, only when you treat it like free money. Here are level 3 rules. Rule 1. Never borrow without cash flow plan. If it doesn't generate income, it's probably bad debt. Rule 2. Borrow cheap, invest in productive assets. Don't borrow at 20% for lifestyle. Borrow at low rates for assets that pay. Rule 3. Protect your baseline survival. Never gamble rent money, never destroy stability. Level 3 requires foundation. Rule 4. Start small, build competence. You don't need a huge loan. You need repeated cycles. Rule 5. Character before leverage. If you can't manage $1,000 credit, you can't manage $100,000 loan. Final truth. Debt is the difference between the rich and broke. The rich don't avoid debt. They avoid ignorance. They avoid emotional spending. They avoid using leverage without discipline. Debt is not the enemy. Debt is the dividing line between those who consume and those who convert. Debt doesn't make you rich. It makes you visible. Visible to the system, visible to banks, visible to opportunity. But only if you use it consciously. The mirror never lies. The question is, now that you see how the rich use debt, will you keep using debt to stay broke, or finally learn how to use it to get free?